Hi, my dear.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And the esteemed Emeritus Professor Vidya Jyoti Dayantha S. Vijayasekara. Today marks the second memorial oration organized by the Institution of Incorporated Engineers Sri Lanka, held in grateful remembrance 2 years after the passing of the professor. As we begin today's proceedings, I kindly request you to please put your mobile phones into silent mode. Right. Engineer Chulabe Sampath Bandara, the President of IIESL, to deliver the opening remarks.
Esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to all of you. It is a profound honor and distinct privilege to stand before you today to deliver the welcome address at this significant oration ceremony. We gather to commemorate the remarkable life and enduring legacy of a truly exceptional individual, Vice President of Institution of Incorporated Engineers Sri Lanka, and our distinguished past President of Institution Engineering Sri Lanka, Vidyadoti Emeritus Professor Dayantha S. Vijayasekara. We are especially honored by the presence of Mrs. Vijayasekara and family. Your presence here today is deeply appreciated and serve as a touching reminder of a personal impact of Professor Vijayasekara's life and work. On behalf of the IISL, I extend a heartfelt welcome to you as well. We are also delighted to welcome our esteemed orator for this evening, Engineer Priyal De Silva, a distinguished engineer in his own right, a former General Manager of Sri Lanka Railways, past President of the Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka, and a past President of the CILT Sri Lanka. Engineer De Silva will be delivering the second memorial oration instituted by the Institution of Incorporated Engineers Sri Lanka Council of Management in Professor Vijayasekara's honor. His willingness to share his insights and reflections is truly valued, and we extend a very warm welcome to you, sir. We are privileged to have so many distinguished individuals with us today. While it is impossible to name each one individually, please note that your presence is highly valued and appreciated. Welcome to our respected special invitees and dignitaries from various universities, organizations, professional institutes, bodies and associations. Respected Vice Chancellors, Deans of Faculties, and all others who have joined us for this special ceremony. Your presence underscores the broad impact of Professor Vijayasekara's contribution and the importance of this occasion. A special welcome is extended also to the immediate past president of the Institution of Incorporated Engineers of Sri Lanka, Professor Bhadrani Thoradiniya, the president-elect of the IISL, Engineer Anand Gunawardena, all past presidents, vice presidents, trustees, and esteemed members of the IISL Council. Your continuous dedication and the leadership are vital to our institution. Professor Dayantha S. Wijayasekara's inspiring support and guidance have profoundly impacted countless members of our institution as well as the youth of Sri Lanka engaged in engineering professions across various sectors. He dedicated his life to the advancement of engineering and the uplifting of the Sri Lankan community. His legacy of leadership and membership continues to resonate deeply within the engineering fraternity. By publishing this oration and the related reflections, the ISL aims to preserve and disseminate valuable knowledge, serving current and future generations with inspiration and guidance rooted in the legacy of a truly exceptional engineer and leader.
For the introductory speech to share her thoughts and further set the mood for this evening.
Good evening to all of you. Madam Wijayasekara and beloved members of the late Professor Wijayasekara's family, President of the Institution of Incorporated Engineers Sri Lanka, Engineer Chulabya Sampath Bandara, Engineer Priyal De Silva, the presenter of the commemorative oration in this evening, friends, colleagues of the late Professor Wijayasekara, past presidents, council members, members of IISL, very distinguished invitees, our special invitees, guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is with deep respect, immense gratitude, and personal reverence that I stand before you today to deliver the opening remarks of this commemorative oration marking the second death anniversary of Vidya Jyoti, Professor Dayantha S. Wijayasekara. As one of his former students at both undergraduate and postgraduate levels, I find it both a privilege and a challenge to speak about the breadth of his impact, not just on my life, but on the lives of thousands of people across this country and beyond. For me, as many of us, Professor Wijayasekara was more than a renowned academic, an eminent engineer, or an ardent administrator. His influence extended far beyond the walls of any lecture hall. He was a mentor, a visionary, and a servant leader whose quiet strength shaped lives, institutions, and educational policy in Sri Lanka and beyond. I had the privilege of knowing Professor Wijayasekara for 46 years. A relationship that began on the very first day I stepped into higher education. It was he who chaired the selection interview that ultimately led to my admission as a student in the National Diploma in Technology, NDT program. I remembered him well that day because he kindly rejected me at first, for the reason that just at 17 I was too young. That simple moment was the beginning of a life shaped by his vision, his guidance, and his quiet yet powerful leadership. Today, I address you not only as someone who was fortunate to be taught and supervised by him, but also as an academic who is inspired by him and has reached heights that were unimaginable for NDT diplomates 25 years back. Professor Wijesekara was a pioneer in every sense. Born into a generation where opportunity was hard won, he rose to become a trailblazer in engineering education and a pioneer, and students are immensely benefited by his bold decisions that were not welcomed at that time by most. In my case, I am humbled to say that against all odds, I was able to become the first associate professor at ITUM, paving the way for the others. As I approach the close of my academic career, I carry with me the immense weight and the pride of continuing his legacy. In the early 80s, he served as the chief consultant to a UNDP project under which the Institute of Engineering Technology, IET, Katunayaka was established. IET continues to produce highly competent holders of the National Diploma in Engineering Sciences who are eligible to become incorporated engineers through the IIESL. This is yet another significant contribution of Professor Wijesekara.
And Polgahaval to Rabukkana, actually there was a line earlier, it got washed away for 1947 floods. So we have just put it back once again. Then the rate, can I have the slide? Slide number 3. The railway commenced its operations with steam locomotives and diesel locomotives were first introduced for operations in 1951. By 1969, full dieselization was achieved thanks to former General Manager Mr. Engineer B.D. Rampal. There are 98 diesel electrics in the fleet which are maintainable. Out of which only 19 are less than 25 years old. So actually there are railways running locomotives which are 70 years old. The M2 Canadian locomotive purchased in 1954 is 71 years old. The M4 MLW Alco engine is 52 years old. M5 Japanese Hitachi is 46 years old. M6 German Henschel is 44 years old. And Indian Alco is 32 years old. And the famous French locomotive is now 26 years old, but only 3 are in working order out of 10. Then the fleet of diesel multiple units service the peak hours urban service, and a few long distance trains are comparatively new and on average 5 to 10 years old. The color light signaling system is in operation from Colombo to Beliatta and Colombo to Rabukkana. The color light signaling system is divided into 2 categories. One is the centralized color light control system, where it is operated, all the trains are operated, changing lines, everything from Colombo Maradana control office. And there are other color light areas where the station operated color light areas. The advantage of the centralized color light area is that the express train can overtake a slower train on the move itself, on the run itself. And also they can follow each other. One train can follow the other train in 1.5 kilometers or in 2 kilometers with the help of automatic signals. Now, then the normal color light area, station to station operated color light system is there from Kolkata to Nagolkama, Andhra to KKS, and Medavachi to Talpinapia, Raghav to Nigambu, and Colombo to Narahapita on the KV line. The rest of the system is semaphore signals, that is the upcountry line as well as the eastern side of the country is with semaphore signals and tires tablet instruments which are over 100 years old. Tires tablet instrument is the train protection system that we have. Present issues that propagate delays. Now, We have got 130 power locos which are operating as multiple units. Those are quite new. That's how the railway is maintaining quite a good service at the moment. So then speed restrictions on track mainly due to weak rails, sleepers, fastings and poor ballast cushion. Also due to restricted speed on few bridges that have been identified for replacement. Without considering the present backlog, annual requirement is 7,500 rails, 13-meter long rails, annual requirement, and 50,000 concrete sleepers and 200,000 meter cube of ballast is the annual requirement, but the money is not allocated to purchase all this. Sri Lanka Railway is required to operate 380 train journeys daily as per the timetable, but owing to cancellation due to non-availability of locomotives and locomotive failures, the average number of train journeys done is around 325 per day. When I say train journeys, actually these trains are operated by about 90 train sets. 90 train sets. So each set runs about 3 to 4 times up and down. There are few train delays due to failure, and also with regard to the bridges, there are still in the network wrought iron bridges which are more than 100 years old, and there are certain other bridges which where the corrosion is setting in, especially in the coastline, which requires to be considered for replacement soon. There are few train delays due to failures in signaling system, as well as delays due to 2 trains travelling in opposite direction, crossing at stations on single line sections. When one train is delayed, it has the chain reaction on other trains on the same line. Next slide. The present modal share of the railway for passenger transport is around 6%, and freight transport is about 1% or less. Annually, Sri Lanka Railways operate 10.3 million train kilometers and serves 7,000 passenger kilometers. And on an average, it carries 110 million passengers annually. Now, the 10.3 million train kilometers is divided into 9.5 million passenger train kilometers, 0.5 million train freight, and 0.3 million is other train kilometers is with regard to sometimes due to yard space not available, the train has to return to Colombo and go back the following morning. Then sometimes for breakdowns, that those train kilometers also put here. Then light engine runs to Ratnana workshop and back. All those are included in the 0.3 million kilometers, including the material trains for carrying sleepers and rails. All that is in 0.3 million other train kilometers. Now these records are from the latest central bank statistics in 2023. The modal share of the railway requires to be increased due to economics reasons. If consumption of fuel can be reduced, present congestion on city roads can be reduced, and furthermore a reduction on carbon footprint can be expected. Professor Dayantha Vijayasekara, in his article on rail transport, past, present and future, published in Rail 2000, which I was the editor, had recognized that the performance of any transportation system is conditioned by its technological characteristics. The function of the system is intimately interrelated with socio-economic activity of the society it serves. Thus, the evolution of rail transport in 1864 was much connected to this phase, where the economy of the country was dependent on freight transport. This trend continued till about the middle of the 20th century, but afterwards, with rapid industrialization, the movement of men and materials became a priority for the rail. Yet the rail did not have much competition from the road. However, in early 1980s, with more trucks and prime movers being operated on an improved road network, the rail began to lose its share on freight. And also more road vehicles too being imported made the railway lose its passenger share too. Further, on the other hand, only limited funds were available for the development of the railway infrastructure, and purchase of locomotives and rolling stock were limited. Today, the entire land transport system is for a major change. There is ever increasing demand for both passenger and freight services. Besides, these journeys require to be completed in the quickest possible time. In an era when the supply is well short of demand, with constraints such as road space, fuel usage, environmental pollution, railway is called upon to share greater responsibility. Thus, it is vital and timely that the modal share of railway requires to be increased. The reliability of rail operations depends mainly on the capital investment made on locomotives, rolling stock, spares, track renewals, replacement of bridges and signalling. Costs incurred on operations are not recovered due to regulated fare structure. Next slide. Now this is the variable cost fares. Variable cost per trade kilometer is about 2000. It's made out of fuel cost per trade kilometer is about 900. Actually, I took it as 300, but now the diesel price has gone down to about 274. Then other variable costs per trade kilometer is 1100. That is the when a train runs on the track, there's certain maintenance has to be done to the track and to the locomotives, and maybe to the signaling system also, and also the salaries of the people who are operating the trains and the station masters. That's how the 1100 comes in. And fares per passenger kilometer is first class, its average is 8 rupees, second class average is 4, because they have actually calculated these fares on a tapering basis. When the distance is longer, the first class fare goes down to about 660, but the distance is shorter, it goes to about 1040 or 1050, 10 rupees 40 cents or 10 rupees 50 cents. So with the second class and third class is also like that, it's 2 rupees, but the minimum fare is, I think, is about 15 rupees between two stations. Minimum fare is 15 or 20 rupees now. Season ticket is actually 1/4 the third class fare. Then, however, the country and people receive indirect benefits from concession fares, where the season ticket is just 25% of the normal fare. Thus, the season ticket holders who travel to employment can afford to travel even from distant places such as Kandy, Beliatta, Maho, Putlam and Avisaville. Next time. Now this is how the cost could be recovered. Now recovery of fuel costs by way of ordinary tickets is you have to carry 450 people in the train per kilometer. To recover the other variable cost, you have to carry 550 people per kilometer, and to recover both costs, you have to carry 1000 people at the rate of 2 rupees per kilometer. That's an ordinary ticket, third class ordinary ticket. But in case of season ticket, it is 25% of the normal fare, so you have to carry 4 times that, 4,800 people, 2,200 people, and also total, if you have to recover, you have to carry 4,000 people in the train per kilometer. So if you are carrying in this basis, season ticket basis, we have bill coach power sets. Each coach can carry about 100. To recover fuel costs, you have to carry a load factor of 1.5. To recovery of other variable costs, a load factor is 1.83, and that means where the coach can carry 100 people, it has to carry 183 people. To recover both those costs at with season ticket, you have to carry 3.33 load factor, which means a 100-seater coach has to carry 333 people. That's how it is. So, yeah, can I have the next slide if you don't mind? Now, this is the capital cost. First of all, it's the recurrent cost in 1955 to 70 in US dollars billion, is 28 was voted, but actually that is coming in Sri Lanka rupees, but it's 133. 1995 2000 it is 34 dollars billion, and we have an allocation of 2258, and 2002 2 to 4 like that we have got, and 2022 2024 so on. Then but anyway the current expenditure is given in rupees, there's no issue, but capital expenditure is also given in rupees, but we have to convert those rupees to dollars to purchase most of the things like the rolling stock, the spares, the track materials, all that is in dollars. So in 55 to 70, 108 million was allocated, that is works out to 514 Sri Lanka rupees million, and in 95 to 2001 it is we have at a lesser amount, $66 only, but in Sri Lanka rupees it is much more, 514 and become 4,384. Why? The parity rate has gone from 476 for a dollar to 66.42. 66.42. So, and so this is the general way how the money has been allocated to the railway, and in 2000 in total expenditure required from the state, it works out to balance this off 118 million in 1955-70, but 1995-2001 it is 87 million. Then 2002 to 2004 it is 43 billion, and 2022 to 2024 it is 77 million. So you can see how the parity rate has increased, 476, 66.42, 90, now it's almost 300. It's 300. So actually what I want to mention here is, with the global increase in prices of materials and various other equipment, has not been considered when allocations have been made to Sri Lanka Railways, as well as the parity rate also has not been considered. So that is why we are like this. So can I have the next slide? Now this slide says, now supposing now 1955-1970 rupees 540 million or 108 million US dollars were allocated, we could have purchased, if you are using that all that money, you could have purchased 600 locomotives. You could have purchased 600 locomotives in 55 to 70. Now in 2002 to 2004, you could have purchased with 90 billion US dollars, 90 billion, but 1,862 rupees million, we could have purchased only 19 locomotives. In 2022 to 24, the allocation is much more, 11,000 million, but we can purchase only 9 locomotives. You can see the amount of the less and less amount of materials that you can purchase. Same with the 600 to be purchased, 2002 to 2004, 76 only can be purchased, only 76, then 22 to 24, only 46 can be purchased. With the rails also same, 1.35 million rails, down to 47,500, then down to 43,937. So unless the government considers allocating money to the railway, considering the parity rate as well as the global market prices, the railway can not hold forward to serve the country in a better way. Then Then the railway, while operating its services, has to maintain its own infrastructure, such as tracks, bridges, tunnels, station buildings, and the signalling system. Train fares are still less than the bus fares, but even though buses do not have to maintain the road infrastructure. So this is rather unfair. What I say is that railway has to maintain its station buildings, tunnels, everything, bridges, but still the fare is less. But in case of buses, they run on the road maintained by the RD or somebody, and their fares are much higher than the rail fares. Now I spoke to then aspects to be focused on to increase the passenger modal share. Now we can't just say that we have to increase the passenger modal share. I mean, that's not going to work out that way unless we give some sort of an incentive for passengers to come to the railway. There must be the service quality should be good, and various other incentives should be there for the passengers for us to attract the passengers. The main areas that can be identified to attract passengers to rail one is improve reliability, punctuality, and reduce overcrowding in passenger trains. Digital ticketing and information systems, communication of station building, commercialization of station buildings, and introducing amenities. Reliability and punctuality will depend on periodic maintenance of track and signaling and timely renewal of materials. Implement scheduled maintenance of locomotives and rolling stock to avoid cancellations and failures. The operating schedules of trains to be adjusted so that trains run at uniform intervals as much as possible, especially during peak hours. By this, passengers gain confidence even though they miss one train that another train will follow in a few minutes. So, only thing is, I really cannot understand, there are certain difficulties involved, but I think certainly some of those difficulties could be overcome, not that it cannot be overcome. Especially during peak hours, railway must try to run trains at uniform intervals like in most other countries, so that the confidence is there from the passengers that even if they miss one train, the second train will come in 2-3 minutes time or 5 minutes time. Because overcrowding means again there's a delay, because getting in and getting down causes delays. Sometimes a train has to stop more than 1 minute, maybe 1.5 minutes even, so that when you stop at 20 minutes, 20 stations, if you stop extra 1 minute, that means 20 minutes are lost in the run. The present ticketing system is archaic and requires to be replaced. The procedure of printing ticket is cumbersome and expensive. The present ticketing system is a cardboard ticketing system where the date is stamped by a separate machine, and also the ticket is printed for all 326 stations, that is from 326 times 326 different tickets are printed. And to print each ticket, I hear that it costs close upon 22 rupees to 25 rupees, whereas the lowest fare is only 20 rupees. So these are things that the government will look into and have a better way of having tickets. The public information should be readily available at stations and on the website of the railway. Now, actually, the digitized information system should be there in stations as well as on board trains. Also, the digitized system should be there, saying that the next station is so much, and you must get ready to get done. Or yes. Common amenities such as washrooms, cafeteria, services, fully equipped waiting halls, facilities for different abled, and instruction of commercialization stations that is supermarkets, kiosks and banks, etc., along with cleanliness both at stations and on board trains are important. Courtesy of staff also has to improve. Now, in this, this is the normal turnstile gating system where actually it gets information of how many people come to the station, how many people get off from this station, how many people get into the train from this station, by which the management has some information of the number of passengers who are using the station, and for any improvement to the station in future dates, that information can be taken into account. Okay. And this is the typical commercialization which I saw in Japan, where kiosks are there, supermarkets are there in the station, and then that's what in Japan there is what is called the penguin card, a debit card, where passenger can use the supermarket, purchase his things from the penguin card, and also can purchase his own train ticket on the penguin card. So those facilities are there for in certain railways. And this is same thing. This is the typical park and ride facilities, parking of bicycles. The next slide. The parking of cars are there in the next slide. This is the escalators, which are convenient. We don't have any escalators in our station, so I mean in time to come we may have to do it. And this is for this is a ramping system connecting platforms for disabled people. Now most of the European countries have this ramping system to move from one platform to another, and also from the floorboard of the train, ramp falls onto the platform so that the differently able person can wheel his wheelchair onto the train. Now these are things that we'll have to look into for future improvements. Actually, these will attract more passengers. The next one. Yeah. Now these are non-fare box revenue. That is, as I told you, the credit card or debit card. Then health sector should be there in stations. Medical sector should be there. Then when people traveling with small children, nursing rooms, restrooms. Then escalators, facilities for the disabled. That is, of course, although they don't bring any revenue, they attract passengers to the system. Then funding for providing facilities for passengers, expecting the government treasury to fund such facilities has been drawback in the past. The railway must venture into public-private participation without having to burden or rely on the treasury. The railway is governed by an archaic ordinance. This particular ordinance was first introduced in 1902, but still that ordinance goes on. That limits implementation of PPP. The railway management and the political hierarchy must look into the possibility of amending the same for the advantage of the railway, possibly even to change the management structure of the department. Now, in case especially with regard to PPP, now I am happy that present general manager is also here. He has introduced the Odysseys, and the intercities were introduced way back, but the passenger facilities or passenger services can be improved to a great extent if it is public-private participation is introduced in those trains. Like sometimes the catering facilities can be improved, then sometimes the private people can actually introduce city tours at the destination stations and take them, and also have sort of connection with the hotels and make them occupy the hotels and do all those things, and that is one way of attracting more passengers to the rail. And same with Now this PPP, I hear that there's a lot of in most of these track work as well as the locomotive maintenance work and the rolling stock maintenance work, they are working with lesser card. The car actually they don't. Although people have retired, they do. I think they have not got permission to fill the vacancies. So they work with less card, and therefore the PPP will actually encourage some of these areas to be given for public-private participation. Now, in case of track maintenance, I mean this could be easily looked into where track work, some of the track work could be given for public-private participation. Then also, in case of rolling stock also, I think already some group is working at Ratmanana workshops where rolling stock repairs are being done by that particular group. So same thing could be continued because even as I told you, the 9.5 million passenger train kilometers, it works out to about 104,000 kilometers for a year, and according to what I hear is that now the facility is not enough for them to be taken for repairs in 2 years. Normally during my time most of the coaches were taken for repairs in 2 years. Now it is extended to 2.5 years or 3 years because the facility is not enough. But if the private PPP is brought in, with private participation, then these things could be given to them, and normal repair schedule can be maintained. Even in case of locomotives, normally the locomotive must go for overhauls in 400,000 kilometers, but maybe now it is maybe little more than that. And the high-speed locomotives, of course, they go by the number of hours. It's about 10,000 to 12,000 hours they after work for that they go for schedules, overhauls. Now, this same PPP could be, I'll come to that later, can be extended to station building maintenance, can be done, and they could be given advertising rights, or as I told you, they could be asked to put supermarkets, and those things can be looked into. And also for the freight service also, I'll come to that later. I mean, PPP could be reduced for the freight service also. The railway is a very large owner of land. They have approximately 13,000 acres of land. Any land that is not anticipated for use in the next 5 years should be leased out to ventures that will not have an adverse effect on railway development. Now, you find that especially in the Himala Mount Rainier area, people have captured railway land and they have put up various buildings, and I don't know whether railway is getting the necessary lease rental from those things. So if you actually railway tries to sort of do it in a methodical way, I mean whatever land which is not really required, and if it is supposing giving land in particularly the seaside, you should get permission of the UDA or the Coast Conservation Department. If the people are agreeable, I mean they should be able to give land on lease. Otherwise, of course, if it is not conducive, they should not give. They should inform the security people to safeguard these things. Then aspects to be focused in increase the freight modal share. The railway, which commences operation predominantly as a mode of freight transport, particularly freight related to the agricultural sector, over the years have gradually given priority for passenger transport. As Professor Vijay once pointed out, economic factors have dictated this transformation. In 1950, the railway had a share of 55% of freight transport, and this gradually declined to 40% in 1975. From then onward, with the advent of freight hauling trucks and equipment, and with improvement to the condition of trunk roads and highways, and in the absence of a firm policy to transport freight by rail, speaks very significantly for the present status. Railway at present accounts only for 160 million ton kilometers, which is about less than 1% of the total freight transport. Freight can be divided into three categories: parcel freight, unit train operations with commodities such as flour, cement, fertilizer and petroleum, that is, they transport from origin to the destination in one go. Then container trains. Parcel freight has largely declined due to the hassle and cost of bringing the same to the station and collecting at the other end. The railway could possibly consider outsourcing the collection of parcels from individual houses and delivery to the recipient. This is one PPP option. Transport of unit commodities such as fertilizer too have declined due to limited facility now available to stable wagons at Hunipitiya due to the construction on the expressway. Transport of containers by train can be enhanced with more lifting tackles at stations and having internal container depots, facilities or transfer stations to carry to its destination. Now, having an internal container depot (ICD) is actually going to give more space in the port area, and remove these containers to the ICD by train and get the people to customize the containers and get the price movers to come to the ICD and pick up the containers and move it into the country. So that is one way of tackling this. Although a transportation was established at Kogbala some time back, many years ago, it does not feed sufficient containers for rail transport. Now in 2010, there was a report done by Roughton of England, and they suggested that a ICD facility should be put at Tilagapatha. Tilagapatha is close to Vattavasan, but that never came up. Now in the recent past, Tilagapatha and Ratmarana both, but in the recent past, government has suggested Veyanguda. Yeah, Veyanguda is also a big land there. There was a naval siding and later used as a food siding. There's about close upon 25 to 30 acres of land there, and that is good. But whatever said and done, the third leg of the triangle at Urugudavatta, which was actually where it is occupied by tenements now, encroachments, where that has to be cleared, because otherwise any container train coming into the port from the north side will have to come all the way to Urugudavatta, do the reversal of the engine and then go on the port line. That is going to be difficult. So we have been telling the governments, successive governments, to get this encroachment out so that we can open up that line, third leg of the triangle. Actually they came and occupied it after 1947 flood site, if I'm not mistaken, because they were displaced and this was a rather high ground and they came and occupied that high ground. So that is how that is. Slide. Yeah. In the past, railways had spur lines, factories and industrial establishments. For example, food siding and timber siding at Ratmarana and timber siding at Boosa, fertilizer siding at Veligama, hardware corporation siding at Inderbulla, oils and fats corporation, now distilleries corporation siding at Sinduva, coil siding at Lunuvida, chemical corporation siding at Paranthan and paper corporation siding at Vada Chennai. Most of these sidings are maintained by railway on payment by the respective establishment. Most of these industries have closed down for various reasons such as instability in the market, and thus the railway has lost its share. Even organizations such as RDA and its contractors used to transport bitumen barrels by train. Even when they were in operation, these stakeholders moved away from the railway due to reasons such as sudden cancellations of freight trains due to requirement of locomotives or because of undue delay in route as priority is given to passenger trains. Sometimes a passenger train breaks down, and supposing a freight train is close by, they get the locomotive of the freight train and work the passenger train. That's how the railway has lost its freight share. Passengers do have a voice, while freight does not voice their displeasure for delays. That's what I have. What railway has to understand, when a stakeholder moves away from rail, it is difficult to get him back. freight has a better demand by rail when it is long haul, such as in India, because transport by road is not quick and not economical. Even India has a system of avoiding double handling by loading the container trucks piggyback the rail ladder. This is piggyback, where the prime mover is loaded onto the rail truck, so there is no double handling, straight away taken from origin to the destination. Sri Lanka Railways have to adopt the most suitable procedure depending on the type of freight, if they are to enhance the modal share. Digitalization of parcels and freight transport with tools to track freight and parcels will be an added advantage to freight forwarders and customers. Actually, when I was in 1980s, when I was in Europe, in Germany, I saw especially when freight trains or passenger trains from Germany used to go to Denmark, they load the entire train into the ship with the passengers and the freight. And at the other end, they again take out the same train and it goes on the Denmark railways. So the same thing sometimes could be adopted in Sri Lanka also, especially either from Trincomalee to go to Chennai harbour. But I don't think it is possible to do that from Talaman up here, because the sea is very shallow in that area, but maybe from Trincomalee to go to Chennai may be possible. Now these are some things that railway may have to consider in the future. Due to, especially with Hambantota being a very good geographical location for transshipment containers and being unloaded there, especially Indian containers, we can adopt some system like that to get some foreign exchange. Then next slide. Now these are some freight trains, long freight trains used worked in other countries. Sometimes these are about from 1.5 to 1.5 kilometers long, 1 kilometer, 1.5 kilometers long, with work with about 2 engines, about 3 engines, 3 locomotives. Next one. These are typical marshalling yard where some trains bring the containers, then again here they put the container to some other different train and take it to the destination. So all these are digitalized, and where the containers are interchanged from one train to the other train. These are short-term measures to develop passengers and next slide please. No. These are short-term measures to develop passenger and freight modal share. However, in the medium term, railway has to be energy efficient and focus on reduction of the carbon footprint, and thus effectively reduce the expenditure on fuel and locomotive maintenance by embarking on electrification. Initially commencing with the suburban areas. The electrification has to start with Panadur to Veyanguda, where the passenger density is the highest, and later extend it either way and onto Ringam and Kandivali line. Of course, lately in 2008, the ISL was pushing for the electrification, but from they got the ADB to do a feasibility study, and Dr. Tilaksi Mlapite, who is here, he helped the ISL to find certain discrepancies. There were some discrepancies in those reports, and we had to again forward them to the ministry with these discrepancies. Afterwards, it has come to some sort of a standstill. So we'll have to again revise the situation, and this is one thing very important. And of course, I must tell here that the railway ran its first electric train in the Kaburupitiya Gamuda in early 1990s. That is, we ourselves ran that train with a Kawasaki engine, narrow gauge engine. So there's a lot of resources in the railway. There's a lot of potential in the railway where we can do our own work to a very great extent. So only thing, that potential is not harnessed by various governments. This is the issue. The railway can also allow private sector to maintain station buildings, CSX told. Railway could identify freight corridors and run freight trains in these corridors to attract freight. Most rail lines radiate from Kalavu and do not form loops. Railway can consider joining some of these lines. For example, there could be access to BIA from Gampaha and join Nigambu line. Also Mahu to Bangadiriya and Kurunaigal to Habarana. These projects require to be taken up after a feasibility study under present economic situation of the country. All in all, it is my opinion that present railway is trying to cater to the requirements of the 21st century with the rolling stock, equipment, infrastructure and mainly concepts that suit 20th century. With this statement, I wish to send an important signal to the minds of the decision makers to concentrate more on the development of railway for great economic benefit of the country. I will not be doing justice to legendary Professor Dayantha Vijayasekara if I do not mention the great strides he has taken personally to recommend training to engineers and technicians of the railway. In the university, it was one of his pet subjects, work ethics, where he molded many an engineer who passed out from Muratua to take up challenges and work at workplace and build self-confidence. At the Technical Training Institute at Katnayaka, now the IET, he was instrumental in giving an on-the-job training to many technicians. Some of them who were later employed in the railway was an asset because they had already acquired the necessary technical background required for the railway at the time of their permanent appointments. Their ingenuity and knowledge were at a very high level that they found employment with rail equipment companies in other parts of the world within a few years of work in Sri Lanka Railways. Professor Vijayasekara possessed a vast knowledge in various sectors of engineering, both academically and professionally. I think it is essential to mention that soon after joining the railway department in 1975, I too was thrown into deep waters by my superiors by instructing me to do permanent repairs to Pattiputta Summit Tunnel that had collapsed way back in 1951. I had to seek the advice of Professor Dayantha Vijayasekara, though I had a little experience of repairing collapsed part of tunnels when I was working at Mahaya European Board at both ends. He immediately made a trip with his specialist geologist, Mr. P.M. Chittamparapille, late Mr. P.M. Chittamparapille, and myself to Pattipura and advised me how to carry out the repair by inserting precast concrete forms after doing grouting. So this is the status of the tunnel soon after the temporary repairs in 1951. So they had put some sleeper planks on top and rail arches, and both sleeper planks were finishing and rail arches were corroding, and it was again imminent danger of collapse once again. So here I had to tread on unknown territory. I didn't know where the actual hole was there in the crown area, and in fact, anyway, with the help of Professor Vijayasekara's advice, next slide. So this is how the haunches were put. That is actually, it was all taken in a modified railway wagon, and haunches were put first of all, and then later, and then the crown was put. We mounted a tractor shovel, a front end loader, onto a wagon, and lifted the crown portion and put it over the haunches and the concrete. So all this is, I try to say, is ingenuity. When the tsunami damaged 135 kilos, this is the board which is there at the tunnel, Summit Tunnel number 18, at the entrance to the tunnel at particular end as well as at the OE. These are the people who work with me, and it was during the time of General Manager Mr. L.A. Pidis and Chief Engineer was Dale Weller, and the other people were all my fellow engineers and the inspectors and the foreman who worked with me at that time. Now this is this is what I call the dual gauge. Earlier the Caldy Valley line was made dual gauge. That is, both gauges could run, the broad gauge as well as the narrow gauge. In fact, the points and crossings to change lines were all fabricated in our workshop at Debadugude. So now later on, because they could not maintain the rolling stock, there was no necessity to maintain the dual gauge, and it was rather difficult to maintain both gauges. So they removed the middle rail they removed and made it only broad gauge. Okay. Then, this is the tsunami. When the tsunami damaged 135 kilometers of coastline railway, Professor Vijayasekara used to call me almost every day and inquired how the railway was progressing with the repairs. We were able to complete the repairs in just 57 days to the surprise of all concerned, including some foreigners too. So this is damage at Payabella. Some bridges were washed away. We had to do the fabrication of bridges in the bridge yard and bring it over here. And this is also Payabella North Station, Katakurda Station. Next one. This is the entire thing at Paradia, where the train got washed away. My concluding remarks for the railway is vision for the railway development. I mean, at the moment, railway is catering mostly for lower income groups. It should not be so. It should not be so. They should cater for everybody to travel in railway. So even the high income groups should travel. Those days, even I know when I joined the railway, even politicians from Badulda used to come in the night mail to Colombo for parliamentary sittings. So make it one of the most predominant modes of land transport. Allocation of sufficient funds for its reliability and sustainability. That I mentioned. Improve commitment of staff to continuous training. That is very important. The staff training is very, very important. The attitude of staff should be changed. So I think GMR will agree with me on those things. Adopt best policies for the correct direction in internal reorganizations for a better vision. During the period Professor Vijayasekara was chairman of TVC. He wanted me to carry out mapping of 2 technician programs to compare their equivalence, for which I got the help of Mrs. Badrani Thoradeni, Professor Mrs. Badrani Thoradeni. Soon after he assumed duties as Chancellor of University of Vocational Technology, he was keen to get a curriculum done by new program, Bachelor of Construction Technology and Resource Management. So he immediately again called me and requested me to take over the task with Professor Mrs. Badrani Thoradeni and Mrs. Navamani Siambala PTA, and handed over the task to 3 of us. I must mention that he had the knack of identifying the capabilities of his students and without any hesitation entrust work according to their capabilities. In conclusion, let me mention that Professor Vijayasekara was confident that engineers, technologists and technocrats who pass out from the universities and other technical institutes in Sri Lanka were sufficiently trained in their respective fields to carry out projects in our country, and there was no necessity of involving foreign engineers and technical staff, and thus make our engineers and other technical staff just mere supervisors. Thus, in recent times, our engineers and other technical staff have been unable to gain the much needed experience and self-confidence in their work. In the 1970s and early 1980s, when Mahavali development projects were in full swing, these works were handled by locals, and there was only one international consultant to oversee the project. In my opinion, as a mark of respect to Professor Vijayasekara, both institutions, that is IISL as well as IESL, had to initiate to push with the policymakers and to change this system even gradually. Finally, as Professor Vijayasekara has mentioned many a time, that for any project to be successful, it requires dedicated input from all levels of engineering profession. So thank you for your patience, and I sincerely hope I have done justice by this great legendary. I am grateful to IISL for giving this opportunity to show my gratitude to late Professor Vijayasekara and also to express my personal opinion on the development of railways for greater benefit of the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Puyalli Silva, for a talk that was thoughtful, clear, and deeply engaging. You've given us much to think about. We thank you once again for accepting our invitation to deliver the commemorative oration today. Behind this evening's smooth flow are many who gave time, skill, and care. It's now time to thank them. To do so, I invite Engineer Sujeevan Kuruppu, Vice President Events at IIESL, to say a few words of appreciation.
Good evening, everybody. When I entered the University of Moratuwa to study the National Diploma in Technology, NDT, in the year 1981, just after my advanced level, I was so excited and thrilled to start my higher education path in a reputed engineering university. Our first gathering after the rigorous selection and registration process was held in the James George Memorial Hall, which was the only hall of that caliber available in the university at that time. I can very well remember two prominent figures in the stage: the eminent Vice Chancellor, the late Professor Patwadintana, and another eminent figure, very smart, very tall, with a strong personality on the stage, who delivered an inspiring speech to everybody. He encouraged us to pursue our studies under the purview of the NDT curriculum and also enlightened us about the opportunities available to advance our further studies. It's almost 40 years back. Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored and privileged to propose the word of thanks at the second commemorative oration of this gentleman, late Professor Dayantha S. Vijayasekara, after 45 years as the Vice President of the Events Committee of the IISL, Sri Lanka, and also as a senior citizen and with 35 years experience working as an engineer, who was influenced and inspired by the role model of this important character. Having said that, it is my duty today to thank many people who have helped to organize this event successfully. First, let me thank Mrs. Vijayasekara and her family members who have accepted our invitation and are present here today. Thank you, Madam, and the family members. Let me thank Engineer Puyalli Silva, former General Manager of Sri Lankan Railways, past President of Institute of Engineers, Sri Lanka, and the past President of CILT, Sri Lanka. Sir, your oration on the subject of transforming Sri Lanka Railway, driving the engine of economic growth, is very relevant to today's transportation requirements in Sri Lanka. You explained very well that a functioning public transport system efficiently is the backbone of the economic growth, social mobility, and sustainable development. Thank you for your speech. I hope everybody highly appreciated the facts highlighted by you today. Let me thank our President, Engineer Sampath Bandara, who gave the welcome speech, our immediate past president, Professor Badrani Thoradeniya, who gave the introduction speech, the late Professor Dantes Vijayasekara as a student and worked under him many years, and our First Lady President of IISL, Engineer Pushpa Jinadasa, who worked in the Sri Lankan Railways as the Deputy Chief Engineer of Signal and Telecommunication when he was retiring, and today gave the introduction of her own former General Manager, Engineer Priyal De Silva, as the orator. Also, let me thank our organizing committee members, President Sampath Bandara, Professor Badrani Thoradeniya, Engineer Namali Siyamila, Past President Engineer Chandasiri, Past President Engineer KK Kiseri, who were behind all the organizing activities. On behalf of IIESL, let me thank all invitees who accepted our invitation and are present today, and all members from Institute of Engineers Sri Lanka, University of Moratuwa, ITUM, OUSL, IET, HNDE, and chairpersons and office bearers of other institutions in which the late professor was associated. Also, I should thank all past presidents, council members, and members from IIESL and other attendees who are present here today to listen to this oration. My special appreciation goes to our IESL office staff for their contribution. I must thank our printer, Tilak printers, who printed the booklet, the photographers, and our caterer, Natri caterers, Navala, for the delicious food served. My special appreciation also goes to the Olympic Committee management team and staff who provided very friendly support in organizing this event. Last but not least, I must thank our compeer, Master Taraka Simbalapitiya, a young engineer who handled the comparing part very efficiently. Thank you very much. And today it's a bad weather, heavy raining outside. Please go back safely, and thank you very much for the participation. Thank you, everybody. Over to you, Sam.
Thank you, Mr. Kulupu, for your kind notes and the warm spirit. As we come to the end of this event, I offer heartfelt thanks to you once again, each and every one of you, guests, loved ones, colleagues and friends, for making time to join us in honoring our beloved late Emeritus Professor Vidyajyoti Dayantes Vijayasekara. We hope you leave tonight with a renewed sense of legacy, purpose, service and care. May your journey ahead be smooth and safe. Good night.